Hello there, Brick Fanatics. I'm not gonna lie, I've been quite surprised by just how positive the reception has been online to the new LEGO Monet Water Lilies set. 31220 Claude Monet Bridge over a Pond of Water Lilies was shown off to us last year at Fan Media Days, and if I'm being brutally honest, this was not one of the ones that really wowed me during the event. I think it didn't help that when they first unveiled this to us, they first showed us a copy over the actual painting that the set is based on, and then they showed us the set itself, and I thought, it's not quite managing to capture that impressionist glory. LEGO is always going to struggle with individual brushstrokes, which is always the appeal of impressionist paintings, and I really find it interesting the way that the LEGO group has tackled this problem with various impressionist sets that we've had in the past, specifically the Van Gogh sets. Sunflowers, I think, is the gold standard for this. I'm so impressed how some of Van Gogh's really thin brushstrokes have been recreated in LEGO form here. One of the great things about the LEGO art theme is how experimental it always feels and how each and every set has such a completely different way of approaching things, such completely different parts usage. Sometimes this works very well, other times it doesn't, but that's art in general, and especially Impressionism. This time around the set is relying very heavily on bar elements. This is an inanimate carbon rod feast. This is, I think, a bold and an interesting way of approaching Monet's brushstrokes. It just doesn't do it for me personally. But that's okay, because the whole point of art is that it is subjective, and the whole point of the LEGO art theme is to really push the boat out and try different things and experiment and let the designers just run wild with their imaginations and try out every possible different way that they could consider putting LEGO bricks together in order to create the masterpiece that they are working towards. One thing I did notice, because I am a short-sighted fella and I sometimes need glasses and I sometimes don't need glasses, when I was filming this set at Fan Media Days, and there's the painting and there's the LEGO set right next to it, one thing I noticed as I'm taking off my glasses in order to look at the camera and then putting them back on to look at the painting and going up and down is I began to realise that it looks significantly better if you are short-sighted. If you take a step back, if you allow your vision to blur a bit, then this looks significantly more like the painting, and that's kind of Impressionism as a whole, so in that way the designers have absolutely nailed it. The other way that I think this is actually a brilliant recreation of an Impressionist work is the fact that maybe I don't love it, because I remember my first exposure to Impressionism at school. I did look at it and I thought, well, that's not very good, is it? As time has gone by, it has become one of my favourite expressions of art, one of my favourite art forms. I love a lot of Van Gogh. I love Monet. I remember going to the Museum of Modern Art in New York and just drinking in some of the giant water lilies that they have there from Monet, and they are absolutely exquisite and such powerful, powerful works of art. But when the Impressionist movement first started, a lot of critics looked at those early paintings and said, much as I have said of this LEGO set, I don't think it's for me. This is the thing I think that is lost to time, is the fact that Impressionism was really punk back in the day. Nowadays you look at it and you're like, oh, that's wonderful, that's fine art, but at the time it was considered sloppy, unfinished, rough around the edges, basically just noisy and messy, rather than being a full finished piece of art. It was also quite a political movement, with Monet and other early Impressionists actively rejecting the establishment, all of the fancy, well-to-do artistic academics who were in Paris saying, this is good art, this is bad art, etc, etc. At the time, paintings were expected to be created in a studio space over days, weeks, months, a huge amount of time, every single brushstroke to perfection, and very rarely was this capturing real life. A lot of these scenes were from the Bible or from the classics, from Greek literature, and it was very rare to have a painting that actually showed real life at the time. The Impressionists essentially said, nuts to that, I'm going to go outside and paint. And so they would set up their canvases outdoors, they would capture that specific moment in time, they would paint as quickly as possible in order to be able to capture that moment as it existed. Monet was famous for painting the same scene over and over and over the course of days or weeks in order to capture different lighting environments at different times of day. These paintings were raw, they were tangible in a way that a lot of other paintings at the time were not, and they showed real people doing real things in real life. life. Because of that approach, Impressionism was also significantly more accessible to women, both appearing in the canvas as something other than a nude model, people actually living their lives, and also women were a lot more able to actually do the painting, which is something that the Academy was not always very keen on promoting. So in 1874, annoyed by the establishment, a bunch of punk artists got together and said, we're going to have our own exhibition, and anyone can be in it, and basically the theme of the whole thing is whatever we want. We can just do whatever we like. It doesn't have to be as polished and as perfect and as scripted as a lot of the professional paintings of the time. This group called themselves the Anonymous Society of Painters, Sculptors, Printmakers, etc., but they became known as Impressionists because of one of Monet's paintings, Impression's Sunrise. Art critic Louis Leroy looked at this painting and at everything else at the exhibition and said, yeah, impression. That's basically what this is. It is the kind of suggestion of a finished piece, but it is not actually done. So the term impressionist was initially coined as an insult. You have given us maybe a kind of vague glimpse at art, the impression of art, but you're not actually finishing the job. But a bunch of different critics really appreciated this art. It felt fresh and new and innovative. And so the term impressionism stuck, initially as an insult, but ultimately just being coined as the name for this kind of painting. Impressionism was also a brilliant answer to a problem that the artistic community was suffering from at the time, the invention of the camera. You had a new technology that could do what an artist had been doing very slowly over days or weeks of months in a matter of minutes. It was therefore a lot cheaper, a lot more widely accessible, and it put a lot of artists out of work. So we had Impressionism doing the things that the camera couldn't do at the time. For example, a huge focus on colour. Colour is such a significant part of the Impressionist movement. You can see that in this LEGO set. It is everywhere. I think that the designers said at Fan Media Days that they've used basically every colour in the LEGO palette at the moment. And I feel that you could see that as an answer to the camera. Okay, great, you've got this black and white image that is basically realistic. Well, here's something that is not realistic, but it's absolutely overflowing with colour instead. Then there's the fact that for a photo at the time, you needed your subject to stay really, really still in order to get a clear image. That was not a problem with Impressionism, and as said, Impressionism was much about taking the canvas out into the real world and capturing real scenes. This was something that a painting could do at the time that a photo could not without being blurry. Now, much like the punk movement, some early Impressionists ended up getting very, very wealthy once their ideas went mainstream, Monet more so than possibly anybody else. A lot of that fortune was funneled into gardening work because he loved gardening, and that leads us to the subject for this LEGO set. But I'm not going to describe the history of that. I'm going to leave that to the LEGO designer. Two LEGO art designers were at Fan Media Days, and when they unveiled this thing to us, they talked through the history of the painting. So I'm going to let them do the rest of this history lesson and also talk through the creation of the LEGO set as well. I will turn the rest of the time over to them. But before I do make sure that you do all of the YouTube things. You know the drill by this point. Give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe and the notification bell, etc, etc. With that, I turn the time over to the LEGO designers for their Fan Media Days presentation.
Okay. So for the next one, actually I want to start with thanking you guys for being here, for coming all the way out to Billund for this. I know it's really special for you to see all these different models and to come here, but it's also really special for us as designers because we work towards this moment of showing you all what we've worked on. It'll take a little while before I take this off, so just if you want to wait a little bit because actually, like 5 minutes before I was outside waiting in this room, I was thinking, you don't have to be nervous, you did this last year, but now I'm here and I am nervous, which is not my name, by the way. I'm Stein. I'm a Dutch model designer working for the Art and Botanicals line. I recognize a lot of you from last year. I've spoken with a lot of you, so it's really cool to see so many familiar faces. But yes, I'm actually here for two reasons. The first one is that I want a little bit of retribution from last year. Because as some of you may remember, I presented Sunflowers by Vincent van Gogh. As I should say, Vincent van Gogh, which is his actual pronunciation. And I got kind of butchered online for it. So I hope this rectifies it. But then, the second reason why I'm here is because of this model, of course. And I've been really stoked to show this to you guys. We've had an amazing partner. We work together with the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the Met. And I was thinking how can I present this to you guys? Could I do this little quiz of, telling some facts about it, like for instance that it was painted 10 years after Vincent painted the sunflowers, or that both painters were impressionists, or maybe that they both lived in Paris. Maybe I'm giving away too much, but I think I'll just reveal the reference piece that we've been gifted by the Met to kind of work with. So this is the Bridge over Pond of Water Lilies by Claude Monet, and he was a French painter. And just to tell you a little bit more about our journey and why we chose to work on this piece and work together with the Met. Claude Monet was on a train ride somewhere late 19th century, and he looked out of the window from, it was in between Normandy and Paris, and he saw this really cute, beautiful town called Giverny. And he was like, I want to move here. I want to move to this place. It's gorgeous. So he takes his large family, finds a nice property to rent, and he moves in. And the nice thing about this property is that it has a really nice garden. And what a lot of people don't know is that besides being an incredible painter, Monet was also an excellent gardener. And he decides that he wants to spend the next of his 43 years, of course he doesn't know how old he's going to become, but he decides to spend the rest of his life working on creating this beautiful garden. And what he does is he buys an extra plot of land. He's not really loved by the local government because he illegally tries to divert this river into his backyard, which becomes this pond. And it's funny that we just talked about I guess we can say that. Well, I will not mention it because of the embargo, so I'll shut my mouth. But he's also super inspired by Japanese artwork and woodblock prints, so he has a big collection. And even though he's never been to Japan, he decides that he wants to implement all of these features in his garden. So you see the Japanese footbridge. He imports a lot of beautiful exotic flowers, like all the different water lilies, which is what he, of course, becomes known for. And the funny thing about this is that he did not intend to create this beautiful garden with the idea of painting it. The gardening and the painting were two separate things, until one moment when he actually decides to start, looking better at, his own garden and realizing how pretty it actually is and how much the joy he gets from it. So this is one of the first paintings from that series that eventually ends up being about 250 different paintings of water lilies. And I think we should just show the model to you guys.
Let's move this one.
Yeah, let's move that one out. Thank you. Wow. So this is our version of the Bridge over Pond of Water Lilies. You can see we've incorporated the footbridge, and especially really went into all the different colors that the original painting has, and also focused very much on the light that falls onto the whole scenery. Just really excited to show this to you guys. We've once again opted for a very clean frame because it's a very busy painting with all of the different elements and different colors. There's some really cool, nice part usages. So we have like these butterflies up here, the cherries. We're using carrot tops and sticks to create the willow. And we have the katana swords, some bananas. So there's a lot of cute little elements in there, also little painter palettes. And the model has it has 3,179 elements. So it's quite an extensive build. And that's it.
Wow. Wow.
We do have time for questions.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Graham from Blocks Magazine. When you started work on this, how far did you think about stylizing it and adapting it versus trying to get a really precise representation of the original painting?
So Adam, who worked on the previous model we showed, he did the first initial sketch for this, and it was a very detailed, very parts-intensive model. And I think with this model, the main thing that we had in mind, especially when I started developing, was the building experience. So it's the same thing with the sunflowers. I mean, it's a very tedious job, of course, because of all these small little elements. So I think that was our main kind of key takeaway, was to try and stylize it so that it's actually also a fun building experience. Also keeping in mind that a lot of people who will probably pick this up may not have experience with building Lego sets.
Another question over here? Just kind of going off of that. So Monet and Van Gogh, obviously both impressionists, but this looks so different to a Van Gogh.
Yeah.
Was there a particularly different approach to doing a Monet rather than doing a Van Gogh, and were there different kind of techniques that you ended up relying on more heavily?
Yeah, I think with the difference is that, you know, Van Gogh has very stylized way of painting. It's very graphic. It has all these outlines, and he really painted with color. Whereas, I mean, of course, this is very colorful, but Monet painted a lot, like based on light and based on like emotion and kind of his feeling towards it. So he would often like, squint his eyes and kind of, you know, pick all these different light spots out of it. So I think that's also what we tried to do, is to kind of mimic his way of painting and actually using the bricks as a medium in a sense.
The techniques, when did you land on using the bars for the reflection? Was that quite early in the process, or did it come later on after you tried a variety of techniques?
That was actually very early on that we set on that, and we showed it to the partner, and they were actually really excited about it. So yeah, I think that's also why we kept it. We did some different iterations, of course, and we made some tweaks here and there. So I can tell, for instance, something that we did was that the bars were, in the beginning, kind of all like touching each other. So we've deliberately left some gaps to kind of create that brushstroke effect, and also we've tried to implement some other elements like the carrot tops to kind of not have like a very monogamous kind of technique. Graham?
What kind of colour considerations did you think about, like when you were looking at the original painting? Did you think about simplifying it more, or like, obviously you in the end went like quite colourful?
Yeah. Well, were you? I made a joke to Milan Madge, our design colleague, and I said I think we're almost using every single color that we currently have available in the color palette. Yeah. So we're I think like our main consideration was to kind of mimic the artwork as well as possible, and to look into, like, very much zoom into all the different like swats of color. And I think for me, like, if I stand up close, of course I can see all the different elements, but the further you go, actually, the more it starts to look like the original painting, which is of course what makes his style so interesting and intriguing. Yeah.
The frame was an important part of the Van Gogh. It was, I mean, that one doesn't, but does the original have a famous frame that you considered?
Well, yeah, we did consider maybe going with a different frame, but we were also thinking of our entire assortment and kind of where we want to head maybe in the future. So sadly, what was not possible, well, it would have been possible, we really like to stick to the original dimensions of the original artwork. So this frame is about 4 modules smaller in height, but it's the same width. So, I mean, with some modifications, you could, of course, switch them out, but because it's the same frame, it wouldn't really make a lot of sense. We've chosen to go for a very similar frame because we want people to also display them next to each other, especially because the colors work so well together and because they're both like really nice impressionist representations. So I think that was our main consideration. Yeah.
But it was also a discussion with the IP partner and agreeing
Yes.
on how we tackle all of this approach when it comes to collection going forward.
This is Teresa, by the way, our marketing manager, who is very closely involved in the process and also in the communication and collaboration with the Met. So, yeah, once again, an amazing collaboration, and really excited that we got to work together with them, and also got to experience this after hours, and also the rest of the Impressionist gallery and the museum. So it's really cool.
One last thing.
We are not showing the two models in the same frame for obvious reasons, but if you have questions about it, this is the time as well.
Time for just one more. What you mean?
Yes. If not. Oh, yes.
So when you're working with a museum as the kind of IP holder or the expert, how does that differ from working from, say, like pop culture or other kinds of licensors that you work with?
That's a really good question. Honestly, for me, I don't have the experience to comment on that because I haven't really worked with any IP partners besides museums. So, yeah, I think it was a very similar experience to our collaboration with the Van Gogh Museum. And I mean, of course, I don't know how it works with another IP partner that's like pop culture IP partner, but yeah, it's a very close collaboration with a lot of back and forth about also element decisions and kind of what atmosphere do we want to create. So yeah, it's a very tight-knit collaboration.
Super interesting question.
Thank you so much.